There has been a frightening trend that has continued. In the month of March, Dallas's defense was bad compared to where it had been. They gave up 114 points per 100 possessions. That is 5 more than their season average and the worst rating in any single month under Jason Kidd as their head coach. So when we were talking about, and unfortunately, this is at least in part a byproduct of the KP trade. Like, you've lost a lot on the interior defense. So my question for y'all is, do you think that you've seen a note, because those are numbers, but do you feel like you've noticeably seen the Mavericks defense get worse? Because it was great.
Not noticeably.
Okay.
I still feel like it's tough to say they can get stops when they need stops, but when you have out there on the court Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith, and I'll say Spencer Dinwiddie. I know Dinwiddie's not known for great defense, but that feels like 3 really good wing defenders. To your point, I feel like, God, Porzingis, it felt like he barely played anyways just because he was hurt still all the time. But obviously there is a little bit of a weakness when it comes to interior defense, at times rebounding. Dwight Powell, I know he had 13 rebounds yesterday, an awesome game yesterday, but he's not the best big man rebounder. Neither is Maxi Kleba, and then you can't play Maxi because he's either hurt or can't make a shot, so that hurts your defense. And then Luka, I think Luka's going to play better defense in the playoffs. It does still at times. I'm like, Luka, please just get back on defense. Even if they score, could you just get back? Like, why are you making these guys play 4-on-5 because you're upset about a foul call? He's not complaining as much anymore, but he's still like, I'm going to refuse to get back on defense.
And he's talking to himself. Like, you can see him having conversations with himself about it, and you're like, dude, that's still in your own head.
Yeah.
And you got to let that part go. I guess, like, the loss to Washington doesn't concern me as much. Like, that one sticks out to a lot of people because it was your chance to really stick it to KP, right?
Yeah, and Dinwiddie didn't do jack in that game either.
But, you know, they played 3 games, and that was 3 and 4 nights. Is that what I'm doing there? Because they played March 29th, and then March 30th, and then April 1st. And that's 3 and 4 nights, right? So, like, it's that was that?
No, I said, okay.
And I'm just kind of like, maybe the legs weren't there on Friday night. Somehow they were able to find them on Sunday. Like, I don't know how you get the juice to go after that on Sunday, but I think that one of the things is they're also scoring and getting leads and staying on top. Now, whenever they're behind, do they just struggle to catch back up? I haven't really seen this trend on whenever they're behind. Do they just struggle to catch back up? And if that's a problem for them, or if it's just, hey, because whenever they're ahead, they just roll. And teams, so maybe, Kevin, it's like,
they've been able to come back. The Golden State game, the Boston game against some really good teams. I will say this, kind of to your point, I was thinking about closing out that game yesterday against Milwaukee, because with about 2:41, I was like, hey, Jake, because he was playing NBA 2K or whatever. I'm like, you might want to watch it. We're down the last 3 minutes. And the Mavs are up by about 8 points approximately. He's like, oh, this game's over. I'm like, no, not in the NBA with over 2 minutes to go, 8 points. And remember, 2 years ago, that was a loss for the Mavs. Like, they needed to be up by 15 points with 2 minutes to go to hold on to win by 3. So I feel like they've done a much better job of closing out games and then at times coming back. I think of recently the Brooklyn game too. Obviously, Luka hits the big shot, Durant hits the big shot, Dinwiddie hits the shot with no time left. I feel like they've been a pretty good last 2 to 5 minute team, or having to come back in the last 5 minutes down by, let's just say, a makeable margin.
That trend for me, Kevin, this doesn't scare me that much going to the playoffs. Regular season, you're doing the things that it takes to get, into the playoffs, win, move on, advance to that part of it. And then you have an opportunity to say, okay, what is our best matchup in this particular series? And that's what I really want to see is, do you have enough pieces in a series? So this trend, like at any given night's a different story. Your legs can be a problem. Maybe too much partying one night could be a problem. Whatever, but during the playoffs, I don't think it connects as much to the playoffs. As now, my hope is we can find some sort of interior defensive and offensive presence that you can exploit.
The thing is, they have to be, or it feels like they have to be the same person, is because it feels like you get that interior defensive presence, or at least a better. I know you do not have a traditional interior defensive presence that you would look for on this team. That's just true. But the closest thing that you're going to have to that is Maxey, but it goes along with what you said, is you're going to have that offensive presence, because that is the balancing act that they are losing at the moment. Is in addition to trading KP, Maxey has been abysmal offensively, and when he plays less minutes. Well, guess what? When he's not out there on the court, your defense struggles. Like, those things go hand in hand, and maybe that is just as responsible, or it's certainly a part of the defensive downturn along with the departure of KP.
So the last 5 minutes, Luka's going to be on the court. Tell me what you think the best defensive team is for the Mavs. You have to include Luka because he's going to be out on the court.
Okay.
If you're trying to play the best defense, the last 5 minutes.
Am I not factoring in anything to offense on this then?
I'm just saying, the only thing I'm making you factor in is Luka has to be on the court.
Okay.
So you're picking the 4 guys with Luka to put your best defensive team out there to try to close out a game.
Dodo?
I have him written down, yes.
And then I have to put Maxey out there then. Like, that's the way it has to be. I do think...
didn't you pick up Bullock for this situation?
Yeah, I was going to say I go Bullock over Brunson.
Okay, so now you're looking at Dinwiddie or Brunson. Most likely. I'm just assuming.
I think I'm going Dinwiddie because I want another wing out there to defend. Like, I know, obviously, especially with more positionless basketball, you can shift what positions you're guarding, but I'm thinking, like, I want to go another wing for defense, so I think I'm going Dinwiddie then. This
is what we talked about after the trade, and watching a little bit of basketball is Jason Kidd has a really challenging playoff situation in somewhat a good way or somewhat a bad way, however you want to look at it, is when you look at, let's just say you just played the defending champs, you know pretty much who they're closing the game with for the most part. Now they have to make a decision between Lopez and Porter Jr. Bobby Portis. But when you look at the Mavs, you know Luka's going to be out there. You pretty much know Dodo is going to be out there. I'm not saying he's your second best player, but you know that he's going to be out there because of his 3-and-D situation. Then you have to make a decision between Maxey and Powell. You have to make a decision of Bullock, Dinwiddie, and Brunson. One of those guys has to sit the bench.
And I do see, for
how much of that comes down to who's on the court against you.
Oh, sure.
Like,
that definitely.
I do have that, like, that matchup question.
That definitely factors in this, amorphous team that we're playing, not given that option. The 817, you need Powell out there, and from another 817, I think Brunson has to be there with his ability to draw charges, and then the one right after that doesn't mention either one of those players. So I definitely think there's some conflicts right there.